Hey friends, welcome back to the Holistic Ease podcast and blog. It has been a little while since we have had an episode, and I just want to thank you all for your patience with me. I've been going through a personal medical crisis for the last several months, which came to a head several weeks ago, and it has taken me some time to get back on my feet. But I am back on my feet now, feeling much better. And I will talk about what happened in a future podcast. So if you're curious about where I've been hiding, you can either go to my Facebook page and check things out there, or you can listen to a future episode that I'm going to do talking about dealing with anxiety when you're going through a medical crisis. But today, I wanted to talk about something fun and beautiful and timely, and that is where we are here at the beginning of May and fire and flowers. So, where we are at the beginning of May is halfway between our spring equinox and our summer solstice. This is traditionally a time called Beltane. It usually happens on May 1st, and it was, in terms of pagan times, or the way that modern pagans might celebrate it, this is a fire festival. And the fire is meant to represent a couple of different things, and that is mostly focused on purification as well as fertility. Now, I'm not saying that we need to practice any kind of pagan ritual or anything, but what I do think is very instructive is seeing what nature is teaching us at these moments throughout the year when we can mark the time in a really specific way. So we have our equinoxes, we have our solstices. Those are the things that create our seasons. And then we have what are called the cross quarters. Those are the halfway between points during each season. So right now, we are halfway through spring. And depending on where you live, maybe you have felt like it's been spring for a while, or maybe like me, you still feel like spring is having a hard time getting established. Up where I live, this far north of North Dakota, it takes a while for us to start to see spring. But what's so interesting about Beltane is that it's focused on the purification fire, but also on fertility. In other words, what we're seeing around us is the earth is coming back to life. As I look out my window here, I'm starting to see my mom's beautiful crab apple tree starting to put out gorgeous purple leaves. I'm starting to see the caragana bushes put on their bright green leaves. The grass is starting to green up. And my favorite thing of all this time of year is those spring bulbs that start to go into bloom. So we have some really beautiful tulips. Other places you're going to see daffodils, crocuses, hyacinths. All those wonderful early spring bulbs are really taking off around now because we've had usually some rain through April. We haven't been getting rain here, but usually you have those April showers that bring those May flowers. So all of those, real obvious things, we can take some personal application from them. So let's talk first of all about the fires of purification. So we can look at this from a lot of different standpoints, right? So we have come out of the cold season of winter, and now is the time of year where you might start to notice more heat in the air. You might start to notice when you go outside, you sweat more, you have to be more cautious about getting a sunburn. You might notice that when you exert yourself, you're getting tired more quickly because it is getting warmer outside. So quite literally, the nearness of the sun is reminding us of that fact, and we are noticing our bodies going into a natural purification process through sweating by doing that. So we're no longer at the beginning of spring where our main imbalance is going to be vata, where we have that excess wind that's kind of making us feel anxious. Instead, at this point in the season, we're moving closer to summer, and we're going to start to see some of those fire elements, sometimes too low and sometimes too high, but more often moving toward the being too high. So this is a type of season where you really have to tune in. Those transitional seasons of autumn and spring are the seasons where you really have to pay attention almost more to what's going on in the weather every day and learning how to balance out whatever is in excess. And of course that depends on your weather, but it also depends on your body's natural constitution type. And when you work with me as a VIP, this is one of the things that we talk about right away, is helping you to figure out your natural constitution type so that you can adjust things very specifically to you and your own constitution as we go through those seasonal shifts. Why does this matter? Okay, well, let me give you an example. Years ago, I used to always get this strange rash on my inner thighs right at the beginning of spring, and like right through this season of spring where it started to get warm, flowers and trees started blooming. And I could not figure out for the life of me what it was. I had no allergies that I knew of at the time. I wasn't using any lotions or anything strange. I finally went to a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and he said some really interesting things to me. He said, you need to cover up your skin from the wind. So he was trying to explain to me that there was excess wind element going on. And he told me to stop eating nuts for a while because they were causing excess heat. And I just thought that was kind of crazy, but I was like, I don't know, I'll give it a try. I'll see if it'll work. And quite honestly, within days, it was totally fixed. And for the next several years after that, I had to really be conscientious of keeping that balance and not exposing my skin to the wind too much in spring and not eating too many nuts in spring. And after several years, I'd never even noticed that that was a mild irritation for me anymore. So this is where learning your own constitution type and learning that elemental medicine can really instruct you in how to amplify your own health quotient with that. Now, there's another thing that I think of, though, when I think of fire, and I think of the fire of purification. And this is more of a spiritual concept, and one that has been close to me most of my faith walk and getting to know God and getting to know how to walk with the divine, is that we often go through seasons where we are refined as in a fire, almost like we are a precious metal being refined. The dross, all that junk that's not beautiful, is going to get removed, is going to get taken out, right? So here's what can be really hard. Excuse me. Here's what can be really hard about spring is that everything around you is beautiful. Everything is starting to blossom, to bloom. Everything is starting to be fruitful. But if you are personally going through a season that does not feel like that, whether it is in your body, it's in your marriage, it's in your friendships, it's in your job, it's with your kids, where things don't feel like they have creative flow, where things don't feel alive, where things don't feel fertile, where you're feeling not just stuck, but maybe you actually feel like you are in the crucible. This is a very strange time of year because you yourself are being put under so much pressure, but yet everything around you is bursting into bloom. Everything around you is happy and is showing signs of life. And it can almost make being in the crucible more difficult, right? It can almost make walking through those really hard, high pressure, really intense seasons even more difficult. So how do we deal with that? How do we alchemize that, right? Because there is just the reality that sometimes our life does not reflect what's going on seasonally. It might feel inside your soul like it is the dead of winter, even though it is the beauty of spring outside. So this is where, even in those tough times where you are just in that crucible, you are in the fire, you are being refined, that being in close touch with nature and allowing nature to nurture you can be so powerful. So this is my story right now. I have been walking through a very intense health crisis that actually encompasses about 3 different areas of my health and my life right now. I have been uprooted from my home. I have had to be taken care of by other people. I have financial concerns. I have physical concerns. I have had a recurrence of my personal anxiety that I haven't struggled with in years. I have not felt this level of pressure ever in my life. And every day when I'm getting up and I'm fighting those battles with myself and I'm having that anxiety, the thing that has been a balm to my soul is simply to go outside, sit on the ground, and listen to the bird song. Look at the blue sky. It's almost like going back to this childlike state of letting go and just actually letting myself be and letting myself enjoy and letting myself take it in and letting myself observe. And this has to be done with absolutely no expectation, by the way, because when you're in the crucible, when you're under the pressure, the last thing that you need is somebody to tell you that you need to be doing something else, or that you need to be doing something else better, or that you're not doing something right. All I'm inviting you to do, if you yourself are also going through a period of refining, is simply to give yourself the space to get out in nature, and that's it. And if something speaks to you, great. And if something moves you, awesome. And if you notice healing from the ground itself, great. And you might not, and it's okay. But I promise you, the physical rebalancing that can happen with that simple time outside can make it a little bit easier and a little bit easier and a little bit easier to deal with that pressure, to deal with being in that refining process. And for those of you that are open to that, those of you that are already in a spiritual practice, when you're in the crucible, you almost have to step outside of it for a moment to be able to be in contact with the divine. So this is where, even though you're in the refining fire and you don't feel happy as a tulip, fine. But let nature, in her way, minister to you, because it really has for me during this season. So that's the fire of refining. But then there's the other side of it, the real obvious one, which is the blooming. Everything's getting planted. Everything's popping out of the ground. Everything's going into bloom. I went outside yesterday. There was like 100 bumblebees on this lavender plant that I had gotten for my mom. And it was just like amazing to see just the fertility and the action, the bias toward action that is just inherent in nature at this time. And so how do we apply this to our lives? Well, if you're in the crucible, you might just have to be in the crucible. This might not be the time for you to be bursting into bloom. But the theme for my members group and my members collective this month is bursting into bloom. And for those of you that are in the right place in your life right now, that are ready to let something bloom, this is the time. This is the time to not be holding back anymore. This is the time to ask for that promotion. This is the time to ask for that first date. This is the time to try that new opportunity. This is the time to launch the business, right? So whatever nature is doing, let's see if we can reflect that on every layer, on every level in our life, whether it's spiritual, it's social, it's emotional, it's relational, it's financial. Where do you want to be blooming right now? What do you need to change so that you can bloom? What do you need to get in place so that you can make those changes, so that you can be thriving, so that you can be moving forward, so that you can not just have a bias toward action, but actually to be in action toward those things, to those areas, to those projects where you do want to see growth and flourishing, and where several months, several years down the road from now, you want to be able to harvest. This is the time to get over your timidity. This is the time to get over your fears. This is the time to pump up your confidence, however you need to do that, and just face the hard stuff. And the only way out is through, to push through that so that you can even see if this opportunity or this relationship or whatever is something that you really even want, and to really allow yourself to start to grow and to move and to bloom and to nourish into that area of your life. So this is what this season of the year, this Beltane season, this moving into May now, this is what this season teaches us. And if you are looking for more of a way to nourish yourself, there's a couple of different options that I have on offer for you right now. One of those is just simply to become part of the monthly subscription group that I have for members. It's called the Members Collective. In the Members Collective, you get a monthly sound bath. you get a seasonal recipe of some kind. Usually it's an aromatherapy recipe, sometimes it's an herbal recipe, every once in a while it's a food recipe. I'm going to give you some reflections on the season and what you should be looking at this month to leverage in your health and wellness. And then I give you some really great exclusive discounts to apothecary products through me. So for instance, this month, it's actually 30% off for members on any order over $100, which is like an awesome way to stock up on products that you need for this season. So if you're curious about that, I want you to go to bit.ly/memberscollective and you can enroll yourself in that subscription. You can cancel anytime. And just so you're aware, I do have a 50% off code for new members to the collective for their first month. And that code you can use is SALE50, all uppercase SALE50, the number F50. And you just put that in at checkout and then you should be good to go. And you'll have immediate access not just to this month's content, which is a long sound bath that has guided meditation, gongs, crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, bells, chimes, rattles, drums, what have you. It has everything in it. But you also have access to all the previous month's sound baths and materials. So if you're not in a mood for that kind of a sound bath right now, but you really need to chill out with some crystal bowls, there's lots of things to explore in the Members Collective. So that's option number 1 for self-nourishment. Option number 2 is if you're a person that's like, man, I really... This right now, what I want to do in my life is I want to do what you do, Erin. I want to be able to know about herbs. I want to be able to know about essential oils. I want to be able to know about permaculture. I want to know my own constitution. I want to know how to leverage things for my lifestyle so I'm happier, so that I feel better in my body, so that I feel more at home in this existence, so that I feel like I can create more leverage for my family in all of these areas, health and finances and so just everything. I want to get into holistic health. This is why I have VIP one-on-one complete holistic lifestyle makeover coaching. So in one-on-one VIP coaching over 12 weeks, we basically do a complete lifestyle makeover for you from top to bottom, covering all of those subject areas and much, much more. And the feedback that I've gotten from my VIPs so far that have gone through this program with me is that they are just utterly surprised how much that we're able to cover in that 12 weeks, and not only how much they've learned, but how much they've actually already applied to their life that has become part of the habits of who they are, and then how much they still have to explore that now they know where to start and what their jumping off points are and where to go from here. So if that is something that is of interest to you, I have only a few slots that are available in my schedule for VIPs for the next 12 weeks. And that is open for enrollment through the month of May. And at the end of May, or when those slots are filled, that will be closed again. If this is something that you want to explore, even if we've talked about it before, you can go ahead and book a free discovery call with me by going to bit.ly/discoverwitherin, and you can book a time for yourself at your convenience on my calendar where we can jump on a quick call and talk through if this is an opportunity that's going to suit you right now, or if there would be something else that I have on offer through classes or other types of consultation that would be a better fit for you. So those are the two things that I feel that I have to offer you right now that are really going to help with that blooming, but also with the refining. Because when we really know ourselves and we really know, okay, what are my negative tendencies, but also what are my positive tendencies, then you're going to know, even when you're in that crucible, when you're going through that fire, what you can leverage and what you need to be aware of about yourself. And that self-awareness is power, and it changes everything. So again, Members Collective, monthly subscription group, sound bath, super fun, very themed, very seasonal. bit.ly/members collective. For those of you interested in VIP one-on-one coaching, you can go to bit.ly/discoverwitherin and you can get yourself booked for a time to chat with me. And I will see you guys next time.